when a $3,000 car actually cost $8,000. Let's find out why. Let's get started. There's a lot of you out there that have always wanted a Mercedes. I get asked a lot, hey, I'm looking at this C230, are those reliable? Really, any Mercedes can be reliable if they're maintained. This one's been maintained pretty well, but it's getting close to the time where a lot of repairs are coming due all at once. With these cars, you can easily drum up in a very, very expensive repair bill on maintenance that's been procrastinated on, or I'll get to that later, and one thing turns into three, and then 3 items turns into 7, and then into 12, and it really adds up really fast. Customers got it here for an oil change, inspection. We've got quite a large list to show them. They'll see what they want to fix, what they don't want to fix, and over time we'll slowly get this thing back up to par. This one's in very good shape. Let's take a look around it and look at it. Here's the front of the C230. It's a quintessential Mercedes design. It's not really mistaken for a Ford Fusion. It has those nice ovular headlamps. They do need to be maybe polished or resurfaced at some point. But otherwise, it's in decent shape. Nice looking wheels. They shine. They don't have a ton of huge gouges. Down this side, you can see the paint shows well. It's not dented or caved in or rusted out. At the rear, very nice tail light design. Mercedes uses that on multiple different models, the kind of street or swoop styling. Equally nice on the passenger side as well. Let's go ahead and jump under the hood. You guys just checked out the exterior of the car, and keep in mind, it looked pretty nice. It has 187,000 miles on it. Let's go ahead and get the hood open, pull its tongue like a frog tongue. And here's our 272 V6 engine. I'll go ahead and put the hood in service position with the little button right here. Look at that, guys. Boom. Yes, this is a 2006. I know what you guys are thinking. 06, 07, that's the years of those balance shaft issues, timing chain issues. You got it. You're right. Right here we're looking at a ton of expense. And thinking of expenses, I know car repairs can be very expensive. Between that and the rising cost of just living makes it keeping money in your wallet harder and harder. Luckily, today's video is sponsored by Upside, the free app that gets you cash back the things you're already buying at the grocery stores, restaurants, and gas stations like Shell, Phillips 66, Exxon, Mobil, 7-Eleven, and Marathon, just to name a few. I've been using the app at Casey's just down the street from the shop. It's so easy. Just find the offer you're wanting to use in the app, quick claim, and then pay with the card you're already planning on to buy with gas all along. That's it. It's real cash back that I don't have to track rewards, points, or credits. In a day or so after the purchase has been processed, you'll see the earnings in the app. I'm almost to $7 right now. You can cash out your account directly to your bank account, or you can get gift cards to major retailers like Amazon, Lowe's, or Nike. Top Upside earners are making as much as $300 a month. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description below to download Upside and use code CARWIZARD to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon of your first tank of gas. Or scan the QR code here to claim this offer. Now back to this Mercedes. So how expensive can the repairs get on one of these? Let's get Grimes the Guru, the Mercedes Guru, to give us some answers on that. So this is the 272?
Yes. So this is the actually the smaller displacement. So the C230s had a 2.5 liter, whereas the rest of them had, I think, a 3.5.
3.5,
3,
right?
Something like that. But these were actually the smaller displacement ones. They share the same engine platform as the other Mercedes that we just did, the 273. It's just same engine, 2 more cylinders tacked on it.
Right.
Same coils, same sensors, same pulleys, everything, all shared.
It's nice that they stack the ECM right on top for you.
Yeah. They. I think I've mentioned before, these things are super easy to pull the engine out of. Not much to disconnect, and the chassis only interfaces with the engine with a couple plugs. You've got the ECM plug here, these 2 power, and then of course your ground strap, starter wire, things like that, which is right here. You just disconnect it from the box, and rest of your hoses and stuff come off, and the engine comes right out the top.
So you've definitely had your share of 272, 273 repairs, big repairs, huh?
Yeah, not necessarily big. I mean, obviously an engine replacement when these, fail is kind of a large task, but outside of that, these really don't have a ton of major issues.
They do have the balance shaft timing chain issue, though, don't they?
So this one is an 06. So 06 and early 07, these were the first generation of these. They used a different metal on the balance shaft sprocket, and over time they just wear down, and then it would skip a timing chain.
That's definitely not a $100 fix.
No.
Well, it's making a noise now. I'll go ahead and start it, and we can listen. So you guys hear that on startup, the loud clatter, and it's pretty much always there. It just gets a little bit more faint as it's running a little bit longer, but you could definitely hear that timing chain clatter he was talking about. These you were mentioning something about intake flaps, an issue with those too?
So yeah, these use a similar to like most modern engines where they have the variable intake. They've just got flaps that open and close. This one you can actually get down here and the bushing on these wears out over time.
Yeah.
And what actually shocks me is that the link arm isn't broken on this one. I'm not sure if you can see way down in there, but they have these vacuum solenoids that actuate those, and the lever arms break pretty consistently, and they won't throw a check engine light. It'll throw a code, and you'll see it stored that like the intake flap is stuck, but it won't throw a light.
And some of the engines you've worked on that had that issue, you mentioned they're about $1,800 to. It's basically a new intake, right?
Yeah, you do replace the intake. Pierburg does still make them, and you can get them. They're about $1,100 list price, and it's a new intake gaskets, and that's it. That's saves you from a catastrophic failure. I've seen that before.
And then our timing chain job, that's probably what? A few grand?
The timing kits are they're about $3 or $4 grand. It's an engine out job.
Yeah.
So engine does have to come out because you have to replace the balance shaft sprocket and everything, and the whole timing cassette. Normally when you're doing a timing chain on most Benzes, you can actually feed the chain in. You link it to the new one and just feed it in through the.
That, yeah.
But
that's just for parts, probably $3 or $4 grand.
Yeah.
That doesn't include pulling the engine and doing the actual work. So just right here in the engine bay, I mentioned how a $3,000 car will cost you $8,000. So what about the common things like it seems like every time I get a car, it's got valve cover gaskets leaking, coils going bad. Does that have that issue on these? So
the coils are pretty robust on these, and somehow with some sort of voodoo magic, Mercedes made a valve cover that doesn't leak on these.
Right.
Your big oil leaks, this one's got them just like that S-Class did. So your oil separator back here, the seal on that breaks down and it'll start to leak down the back of the head.
Yeah.
Vacuum pump is also leaking, as well as very likely that cam plug seal on the head here.
Right.
Sorry, I'm washing out the view there, but that cam plug seal on the back, those will leak. And then right up front here, you've got both your oil cooler, filter housing, everything. The seals on that leak, and this one's actually been leaking some coolant externally, as well as your cam solenoid seals here. And these are the actuators for the variable timing, and those O-rings, they fail kind of commonly. Pretty normal for a high mile engine.
Yep.
A couple other things on this one. It also does need the idler pulleys and the tensioner. They've got quite a bit of play in them, and again, very common issue on these.
Okay, so like I just mentioned, we have quite a lot of repairs just in this engine bay that we're already at $8 grand buying the car and fixing these issues. But Grimes has even more on this list that he's compiled. I'll go through them real quick and then we'll lift the car in the air and take a look. Front torque arm, lower control arm bushings worn loose, the oil cooler, oil separator like he mentioned right there. Engine trans mounts are collapsed. Cam solenoid O-rings, which he mentioned right here, are leaking. Timing chain noise that we both heard, all heard, I guess, not both. Intake runner flap bushings are loose worn, which is starting to fail on the intake. The air filters are starting to degrade. Brake noise in the rear, pad contamination from rust. Idler tensioner pulleys, like he mentioned there. The front end link boots are torn. So, quite a long list. Let's get this thing up in the air. So Grimes has already done the inspection. We don't need to go through it again, but we're going to go through the list and he can show us what he found based on this list. So front torque arm, lower control arm bushings worn loose.
So lower control arms, the bushings inside of here are beginning to tear, and the other side's actually a little bit worse. Torque arms are in pretty much the same shape. Look like they're probably original, which, I mean, that's not bad for almost 200,000 miles.
And then the oil cooler, separator, vacuum pump, we already showed that up top, but now you're saying engine and transmission mounts collapsed.
Yep, you can see right up here where the shroud for this engine mount, it should be sitting up a lot higher. It's actually sitting on the subframe there.
Okay.
That's a pretty telltale sign that those engine mounts are collapsed. A lot of times you'll see the hydraulic fluid, it's kind of like brown, rusty looking, and the oil, you know, it'll just leak out onto the subframe, and that's usually coupled with engine vibration. And you know, I've mentioned before that, you know, these engine mounts they last about 100,000 miles before you have to replace them.
And this one has 187,000, so it's definitely past due for those. And then you said transmission mount. Let's take a look at that one.
And you can see the transmission mount is sitting pretty much at the bottom of the mount there.
You should be able to put your finger underneath of it, yeah.
Yeah, it should be sitting about dead center inside of that.
The flex disc looks good, though.
Yeah, those generally don't fail on these.
And all these leaks are from all the leaks you mentioned above, actually pouring down here, aren't they?
Yeah, all of this, you can see from up here, or from down here, up to the top, you can see where all the leaks are coming from, right at the rear of the cylinder head. So a lot of people will see this, and they'll see it all accumulate right here, and they'll immediately think rear main. You know, they're like, oh, the engine's got to come out, all of that. To be honest, I've never seen one of these engines with a rear main leak, even 300,000-400,000 miles.
Just all these other, like cam plugs and vacuum pump and
it all
everything.
just leaks down onto the bottom, and we'll start leaking onto the exhaust from there, and you know, make it smoke.
Yeah. Cam solenoid O-rings, timing chain noise, which we heard, intake runner flap, we talked about already, air filters. You said there's some brake noise in the rear, pad contamination?
Yeah, well, you mentioned that the customer actually puts, what, 50-ish miles on it every month?
50 to 100, yeah.
Yeah, so this thing sits a lot, and you know, when cars sit and they're exposed to moisture, you'll get, you know, a lot of rust build up on the rotors, and you can see a lot of rust inside of the wheel there. And you know, it's very likely that pad scraping off the rust is causing the noise. Like the pad life looks good. They all look above 4 mils. So, and they seem to be wearing evenly. So realistically, it's just, you know, some noise. You know, with as little as they drive it, it's probably not something that's at the top of the priority list there.
Passenger side front shock leaking.
Pretty far advanced on it. You can see right here where the buildup of all the oil and crud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's just from the shock leaking out.
And then the front end link boots are torn. I can see that right there.
Yep. As of right now, they don't have any play or anything. Not really something I'd suggest at the moment.
Okay, well, let's get this thing back on the ground then. So in the Mercedes world, obviously if you maintain them, they do last a long time. But the thing is, especially on the C-Class, you probably see people skip maintenance a little bit more.
Yeah, so, you know, cost of entry on these is pretty low. So most people kind of chalk that up to, you know, the car's cheap, I'm not going to dump a whole ton of money into it. But in reality, I've seen this engine, even the 06, 07, you know, the balance shaft years, I've seen them at 300,000 to 400,000 miles without major issue, so long as everything is kept up and taken care of as it occurs.
Right. Do you think actually with the timing chain issues and the intake flaps, it could possibly be easier just to someone could put their own used engine in, or?
Yeah, obviously being mindful that, those issues could exist on a used engine.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go with a later year or one that's that is outside of those
Right.
years for issues, you could very easily get another 100 to 200,000 miles out of this car with, the same level of maintenance.
So that's just changing a like motor for a like motor, maybe a year or two newer. We're not doing some major swap like LS swap or something crazy.
Correct.
Right, we're not swapping it. It is never, ever more feasible to LS swap any car on the face of the planet as far as dollars are concerned. Is it cooler? Maybe it's cooler. Does it make financial sense? Never. It never does. Now, we got that out of the way. I could easily see, though, you could pick these up for pretty cheap, and even if you fixed everything on it, it's still cheaper than a brand new car. And after they fixed everything, do you think it could go much longer after that?
Yeah, they could very easily get another 100,000 plus out of it. Now, to that, with a better sense of maintenance, or
Yes.
a better maintenance schedule, just
Mm-hmm.
taking care of the things as it happens on a new engine. Transmissions in these aren't really known for failure, so long as fluid's kept up.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've seen multiple cars with this combination at the 300,000 to 400,000 mile mark, and with plenty of life left in them.
Sweet. All right. Well, thanks. You knocked it out of the park. I'll let you hit back to break, and a lot of great useful information here. Thanks. Thinking of used engines, again, I don't recommend used engines for most people because what we've seen, what Hoovie went through on the Maserati and also the Range Rover, which he picked up today, that one actually turned out to be good, but I have been through this situation so many times where the engine shows up actually worse than the engine you currently have. Because why? You have a used engine. You just bought another used engine. It may not be better than the one you have. So kind of keep that in mind. Also, someone commented on the Maserati, why don't you buy a brand new engine and put it in? It's because they want $14,000 for a brand new engine. That is not feasible under any circumstance. And say, well, just LS swap it, or put a Mercedes engine in it, or put a Ford 302 in it. Come on, guys. The engineering it would take and the modifications it would take would be $30,000 to $40,000 by the time you got done. That's insane. Could you do it in your backyard with your buddy and a few beers? Maybe. Maybe you can. Good. Go for it. But if you're paying a shop's rates, it's absolutely not worth doing those kinds of things. It's best to do like to like with a good engine, put it back together, and be back on the road. More life for the car. So in this instance, if you really want a snazzy looking car, or you don't want boring Toyota looks, yes, I always push Toyotas, but I admit they are boring. They don't look really cool. They're not amazing. They don't catch people's eyes, but they are dead reliable. But if you want looks, there are some deals to be had. Let me show you what a couple of these are actually selling for locally. Here's a red one, 2006, going for $3,000. And here's a silver one going for $2,500. Another $5,000 on top of repairs. You'll be into it $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. But it'll be a really nice vehicle. It's snazzy, it looks good, and like Grimes mentioned, if you keep on the maintenance, it could last another 200,000 miles. They can last a long time. They just take triple or quadruple the involvement in maintenance as opposed to a Toyota or something. Instead of having a loan that you have to pay for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, I've seen some people getting 10-year loans on their cars. You could put a little money aside for the next year or so and have money to buy a car and fix it up with no loan. Now, again, to that question, people ask, are these a good buy? Are they reliable? In this situation we just mentioned, they can be. You can spend the money to fix them, and it will be worth it. But most people, when you talk about buying it for $3,000 and putting 5 more into it, they're like, oh, hell no. I'm not interested in that in the slightest. We're just doing this video today. Me and Grimes just showing you guys, yes, it can be worth it. They are a good car. They look really nice. It really is your decision. Are you wanting to put that kind of money into one of these cars? So there it answers your question, are they a good buy, are they reliable? Everything is answered in this video. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this one, which we'll see what the customer wants to do first, check our Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut and we really appreciate it. Check out Mrs. Wizard's Ways. She's got some great content going on over there as well. And also hit the subscribe button here because we got a full week of cars coming in. More videos for you guys. Thanks for watching.